I like the rant. Ranting is fun. It also cleanses the soul.
Detroit is to be one of the best sports cities in the country, if not the best.
Surely Javi can't be as bad this year as he was last year. Surely that can't be the case.
One of the worst offenses, if not the worst offense, like in the modern era of baseball. Just absolutely atrocious. He is a piece to the puzzle. He is not the entire puzzle.
Right.
He's a puzzle piece, but he is not the entire puzzle.
This is the Michigan Trumbull podcast with your hosts, Alex S. Freeman and Luke Giaconis. Hello and welcome to the Michigan and Trumbull podcast. I'm Alex Freeman, joined as always by Luke Giaconis. Luke, how you doing?
Good. Feeling good. Feeling real good. The Detroit Tigers, somehow, by the grace of God, did split a series with the Texas Rangers.
In Texas.
In Texas, nonetheless. That Rangers team is phenomenal. I know we talked about it a few weeks ago when they played them at the tail end of May. That's a great team. That is a scary team. That is a team that will make a deep run into the postseason. Yeah, what they've done, look what happens when you spend a little money. Look what happens. Your team really does turn it around. So that and some pretty smart trades. They're definitely set up to be a juggernaut, but that's okay because you know what? Tigers took 2 out of 4 from them on the road, and I think that's pretty impressive. And now, Tigers have I don't want to say easy schedule because I have this gut feeling that I'm going to say like they should steamroll the Rockies and the A's. I have this bad feeling they're going to get swept by the A's. I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say it now. I'm going to try to put the karma out there so it doesn't happen. I have a really bad feeling the Tigers are going to get swept by the A's. They have not played them well these last few seasons. I know the A's have been better in seasons past. This year, they're like a historically awful team, but I've got a bad feeling they are going to get swept by Oakland when they get back to Detroit. But other than that, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. It would not be surprising for this Detroit Tigers team to get swept by Oakland because one of the main issues we've had the past few years is they don't beat the teams they're supposed to beat, and that equates to a big time losing record. No, it's been good. It's been good. I'm excited to kind of be getting to the 4th of July holiday section of the year. It'll be a good time. As everybody's listening to this episode as it comes out, you and I will be enjoying some time together, which is always a fun time when we get the group together,
get the band back together
ahead of the 4th, and away we'll go because we have resident A's fan Tom's 40th birthday party.
Yep,
we'll have been there when you listen
by the time
to
this drops.
We have not been there yet. We have resident Cubs fan Sean's wedding. And then we also have the 4th of July. So it's a big weekend coming up for us.
For our friends, we're very excited. It seems like we can't stop hanging out on the 4th of July. It's just 2 years in a row. The whole group's gotten together, which is okay with me because the 4th of July is probably my top 3 in terms of favorite holidays every year. I'm not kidding. I love the 4th of July. It's a great time. Cook out, light off some fireworks, watch Armageddon. Great stuff. Jump in the pool.
Always with the Armageddon.
I'm going to keep pushing it. I'm going to keep pushing it until you guys finally join me. It's going to be great. And let's start the bets now. What are you getting Tom for his birthday? I'll be getting him a walker. And Life Alert. I don't know what you're planning on getting him, but
I plan to just get him some balm to soothe the fact that the Oakland Athletics had the 25th, 25th, not 24th, perfect game in Major League Baseball history thrown against them. Armando Galarraga will be avenged.
He will be avenged. Yes. Galarraga. Every time I see that, it does piss me off still a little, just for the record. Like, I know it happened, I think, what was it, 13 years ago at this point, I want to say? 13 or 14 years ago. It still pisses me off. Like, I understand it's a great story, like how Jim Joyce owned up to it and Galarraga came out and handed him the lineup card the next game. I get it. They both handled it like Class A gentlemen, and that's great. The man should have a perfect game. Like, we now I feel like baseball is doing so much with going and correcting things and trying to erase the past and like build a bigger and better and brighter future. go back and correct something that should be corrected, that it's clear as day was screwed up, and make it right.
Yes, absolutely. They would have the Tigers had it been in the era of instant replay.
Mm-hmm.
The Tigers dugout instantly challenges that call, and the
And he
game
has
is
a
over.
perfect game. Yeah. Yep.
And I don't even know that they need to call New York. I think Joyce would have switched the call on the field. He would have been like, "Yeah,
Yep.
you're absolutely correct. We
Yep.
don't need to make the call.
Yep.
It is a perfect game." So, but all that to be said, exciting that we had another perfect game.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Obviously,
Domingo Herman. I'm sure Tom was very happy to get perfect game by the Yankees of all teams.
West Coast game. So I was not that I could have watched the game because I would have been blacked out by MLB.TV, living in New York. Thanks, Yes Network. And so I wouldn't have been able to watch it anyway. But I was certainly asleep as that game
I
unfolded.
didn't even know what's going on. I usually I check the late. I honestly last night, this being Wednesday, I know this drops on Monday, but referring to Wednesday night, that was the game the Tigers got blown out. I was so disgusted. I
Yeah.
was like, I am blocking out all of baseball for tonight, and that's what I did. So when I woke up the next morning and found out that there was a perfect game, I was like, yeah, I don't really feel like I missed much. Also, it's the Yankees, and I don't like the Yankees, so it does nothing for me here.
So I do know that the kind of like big Tigers news that we should talk about is also the subject of this week's Luke rant. So we're just gonna cue that right up.
All right, that was my conducting. I watched the movie Whiplash recently, so I'm a regular J.K. Simmons. I'm just gonna get the bleep button ready. Here we go. No, I mean, this is a no-brainer for this week's rant. Like, I don't even call it a rant. I'm just gonna call it discussion. This team is made, I'm convinced, of paper mache. I am convinced this team is made of paper mache. I tweeted it out today and I believe it. I think as a Tigers player, you have a better chance at surviving the Hunger Games than you do completing an entire season healthy. And I truly believe that. I know it's a weird thing with injuries because like you're not supposed to make fun and you're supposed to take it seriously and all that stuff. And I am. I don't wish injuries upon anybody, but give me a frickin' break. I mean, this is just getting ridiculous isn't even the word to use. Is it bad luck? Are they cursed? Are the players just weaklings? Does the training staff not know how to get these guys properly trained and healthy for an entire 162? It's just brutal. It's absolutely brutal with these pitching injuries. And again, you know, Reese Olson in the Thursday game. Now, to be fair, his injury looks like it's negative, so they're hoping he doesn't miss a start. And literally, they can't have him miss a start. I texted in the group today. The Tigers, if Reese Olson doesn't play, as of now, the Tigers pitching rotation is Michael Lorenzen, Matt Manning, bullpen day, bullpen day, bullpen day. They're going to have more bullpen days than they are actual starters in the rotation. So they need Reese Olson to be healthy. And to be fair, everything came back negative, so they're making it seem like hopefully just a really bad bruise, pretty sore, and he'll be good to go for his next start. But to play devil's advocate, wasn't it Matt Manning who said it's just a foot? I'll be back next start, maybe miss one, and he literally just came back a couple of days ago after being out for 2 months. So we'll see. But I mean, the amount of injuries that this team continues to have piled up against them is beyond insane. It's beyond words. It really is. The fact that this has happened 2 years in a row, is it the players? Is it the training staff? Is it a combination of both? Do you pepper in some bad luck? Is this team legitimately cursed? Is this Al Avila still looking down on us from the clouds and laughing? I don't know. But whatever's happening, I would very much appreciate if it would end sooner than later. And to be fair, they are, it looks like, getting some guys back hopefully soon. Tarek Skubal, Eduardo Rodriguez, Bo Brisky, maybe Alex Faedo, Turnbull still a little bit down the road, but they've also lost Matthew Boyd. Let's not lose that. Let's not bury the lead there either. Matthew Boyd is done for the season with the Detroit Tigers. And I will just say this real quick about Matthew Boyd. Um, we know how great of a human being he is. I'm convinced he's probably thrown his last pitch in the major leagues. Tommy John, at his age, given his career trajectory, he's going to miss the rest of this year, all of next year. I think it's curtains on Matthew Boyd's career. I don't wish that upon him. I hope he bounces back and is healthy, but I just think at this point, I don't know how many people are going to be taking a flyer on a Tommy John, almost mid-30s Matthew Boyd in 2025.
Yeah,
Now
like
to me, that's
looking
great
back at
human,
his
but
last few
right.
years, there's and like if you're Matthew Boyd, what you're probably gonna get is either a non-roster invitation to somebody's camp, or you're gonna get some minor league deal offers. And like, do you want to do that?
Hmm.
And me personally, no. I would not do that. And I think Matthew Boyd has varied interests, lots of charitable work that he does. I think that there is a great life ahead for Matthew Boyd, but I don't think he's finding himself on a World Series contending roster, certainly coming back. And like, do you want to come back and pitch for the whatever the 2025 equivalent of the Kansas City Royals or Oakland Athletics is?
Yeah. Also, I think Matthew Boyd has a great career beyond baseball, in baseball, but doing stuff for like the major leagues, but like representing the players. I mean, maybe it's just, like being an ambassador to the players or whatever position he could be like. Also, I could see him being
We
like a
could use
guy,
a
and this
new
might
head
be,
of the Players Association.
we could use that.
We could
I
use a
feel
new
like
commissioner of baseball.
baseball. That's what I was gonna say. But yeah, I don't. It's nothing personal, Matthew Boyd. I know he's had a very, very hot and cold career at the Tigers. Probably should have been dealt at that 2019 deadline or 2018, whatever it was. But he wasn't. 2020 was brutal. 2021 started off good, then he got hurt. Came back last year midway through, was fine with I think he was with San Francisco, then got traded to Seattle. I don't even think he ever pitched a game as a Giant. Um, or whatever it was. Yeah, because they didn't trade him. He signed with the Giants. That's right. Yeah, and then comes back with the Tigers. Very whatever. I think he was like what 5-5, like a 5.5 ERA, like the most Matthew Boyd stat line you could imagine is what he had. And great human being. Cannot say enough about him. But it's time probably for him to call it. But yeah. So anyways, just this is the weirdest rant ever. Now we're just talking. But these injuries, they suck. That's how I'm ending it. That's all I got.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that there's not much else to say. It
Sucks.
Go back to last episode, go back to really any episode in this season, and as we're kind of like projecting out the season, we're kind of going like, okay, what maybe when we get some of these guys back, there could be something here, and it seems like we're never getting all of the pieces back at the same time. After the Matthew Boyd injury, I sent a shot of the TV screen where Bally Sports Detroit had pulled up
Mm-hmm.
the guys on the IL, not counting the two injuries from that game, where
Yeah, Will Vest as well went out that game. Yep.
12 members of the IL for the Detroit Tigers, 8 of whom on the 60 day. So not short-term injuries. Some of these guys have been gone for a while. Some of them are going to be gone for a while. Obviously, Matthew Boyd's season is done. Luke, before we get into that, we have a guest on the show today. We'll be joined by Troy Larson of the Minnesota Twins chat to chat a little Central Division baseball. And certainly a great little Carlos Correa conversation in there as well, where we try and make a deal for Javi Baez.
We tried, folks.
We'll see how it pans out. Out. Luke, any thoughts before we kind of head over into that interview?
The only thing I want to talk about real quick is, and then I want to get it to Troy because that was a really awesome conversation with him, is Colt Keith, obviously, is a very popular name right now, and rightfully so. What he did in Double-A with Erie was incredible. And then in his Toledo Triple-A debut, he goes 3 for 4. First at bat, hits a bomb of a home run. Just
Second
goes yard.
pitch at AAA.
So it just crushes it. Nick Maton did get DFA'd, long overdue. Holy God. I got to say this, and Alex and I are talking about this. I'm taking a shot here, and I know I'm admittedly saying that up front. It has been a while since there's actually been a player on the Tigers like, I just don't like this guy. Like he annoys me. He looks like he's a complainer. He's why I mean, it's been a while. When I watched Nick Maton play the last 3 months for the Detroit Tigers, he is without a doubt one of the whiniest, I'm just going to say it, bitchiest players I think that has put on a Tigers uniform in a long time. Because not only does he not, I'm not even talking about his performance, which we all know was atrocious, both offensively and defensively. Threw away that game literally the other night for the Tigers, which is why he's in AAA right now. But he just looks like a guy. I don't say the thing like they don't put forth any effort. Like I think that's kind of a tired trope. My issue with him is he complains when he strikes out if he doesn't like the call. It's the same thing. Hands up in the air, shakes his head, whines on his way back to the dugout, and it's like, dude, you have not earned enough grace to kind of be this whiny baseball player that he appears to be. Also, I think I'm just gonna say it too. His nickname, Wolfie, it's stupid. It's stupid. Unless maybe there's like a family thing there, and if that's the case, I'm sorry. I don't mean to disrespect the Maton family, but as nicknames go, it's a stupid name. It's a dumb name for a guy I don't like on this team. And there's other players too, for the record, that are on this team that aren't too far behind Maton in terms of that I don't like. But that would be a whole hour of the show, and I want to get to the interview. But yeah, Nick Maton gone, Colt Keith. He's going up the ranks, and it's exciting. We see him this season in Detroit. Kick it to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we'll see. We'll see how quickly he moves up from Triple. I mean, obviously, if he keeps mashing, it might just make sense that he's obviously not going to. He's got to start seeing major league pitching. And you know what? Why not? We're 10 games under 500. I understand we're only 4.5-ish games out from the division lead.
4 as of today. 4,
but
as of the recording.
Let's get the kid up. Let's get the kid up. Don't rush it. Give him the time he needs at AAA. But certainly his first week, it doesn't look like he's going to need a whole lot of time at AAA. Nick Maton is an interesting situation because I think about like the descriptor you gave of him reminded me of a lot of my feelings about Javi Baez, where especially the last year, more so than I think this year, where he was like playing with the Javi attitude, but not delivering any of the Javi results. Right. And that was bothersome, but didn't bother me nearly as much as Nick Maton, because I knew that Javi was capable of delivering at a very high level, of playing with that attitude, of bringing that. And this year, I think it has felt like both Javi's on-field game has improved. Still plenty of times when I'm very frustrated with Javier Baez.
I'll say incrementally improved, if that.
But the way in which he's been approaching the game has also tempered a little bit, and those two things seem to be meeting in the middle in a nice way. Also, before Miguel Cabrera got thrown out.
Yeah, well, that umpire had a bug up his ass. I mean, now to be fair, Miggy did do the clock gesture, like you got to go home. Is that why he did it? They were getting blown out in that game, so I don't maybe blame the umpire, but you show some respect to Miguel Cabrera. But honestly, he's done it all. We got to see him in a home run this year. He hit a walk-off. He's been tossed. Really, the only thing left I want to see Miguel Cabrera do is pitch an inning. And I wonder if they will ever, and probably more towards the tail end of the season, if they're out of everything and they're getting blown out one game. I think AJ's got to let him go out there once and throw to at least the batter. It would be so great. It would be so. I would much rather see him than like Zach Short do it. Like, come on. Like, if we all know that like we're all in on the joke together, I think that'd be pretty magical. Yeah, but I think what you said about Javi and the Maton and Javi attitude comparison is spot on. Where I do feel Javi isn't doing much better this year than he was last year. He's very much more or less the same. His attitude, I do feel like, for what it's worth, is better. I mean, I guess you can't be that cocky when you lead all of Major League Baseball in errors heading into this season. So I guess he's kind of toned that down a little bit. And at least since he got benched, I feel like that's really been kind of toned down. Whereas Maton, I'm sure he's frustrated. No one goes out there and purposely tries to shit the bed, but it's just been brutal. And the funny thing with Maton is, you remember those first 2 weeks of the season, he had some big hits. He had a couple of I once he had one or two walk-offs, or at least one big game tying home run or a go-ahead.
Hmm.
I remember he had one, I want to say in Milwaukee. But man, he's just fallen off. And not only has he lost confidence offensively, it's defensively too. So maybe it kind of explains his piss poor attitude. But yeah, for what it's worth, I know it's not a popularity contest, but he wouldn't get my vote for prom king, that's for sure. He just bugs me. I don't really like the way he approaches the game, plays the game, the way he carries himself as a Major League Baseball player. And then I have complete opposite feelings about his counterpart, who also came over with him to trade, Matt Vierling. It just seems like one of those guys who he's not great at like a bunch of things, but he's just good at a lot of little things. He just like kind
Hmm.
of puts his head down and like plays baseball, and I think it's like night and day between the two. So for what that's worth, I don't know why I brought that up, but yeah, so that's Nick Maton. Just maybe that should have been the rant this week. Nick Maton.
Yeah. Well, that is going to kind of wrap this section up, and we're going to throw to the interview where we sat down with Troy Larson of the Minnesota Twins chat. It's a great interview. We'll see you over there, and we'll see you on the other side of it as well. Welcome back to the Michigan and Trumbull podcast. Again, I'm Alex Freeman, joined by Luke Jaconis. And Luke, we've got a new person in the studio with us. We've got Troy Larson of the Minnesota Twins chat. Troy, thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, I'm glad to be here. Glad to be talking baseball. And sadly, the Minnesota Twins are not doing what I would hope they would be doing this season.
I think that's a solid definition of every team in the Central this year, maybe.
Yeah, everybody on this chat, misery loves company. So I think we're all there together.
Yes, for sure. I mean, the Minnesota Twins, yesterday they lost in Cleveland. I know won last night over Kansas City. So now the Twins are no longer in first place.
Yeah, there's a two-way tie, I believe, and we're time stamping day when we're recording. I believe Cleveland just dropped their finale to the Royals, and then the Tigers just won their fourth game against the Rangers. So I believe right now it's Twins and Guardians tied for first, Detroit in third at 4 games out. So who would have thought?
Which is certainly not the scenario anticipated, Troy. When you and I first started exchanging emails about appearing on each other's shows, I was sort of anticipating I guess we have a Twins Guardians fight at the top. I was sort of anticipating that, but did not anticipate that the Tigers would be in the conversation, nor that all three of those teams would be under 500.
Yeah,
agreed.
It's really not a fight. It's more like a tickle fight. But hey, I guess somebody's got to win at the end of the day, right, Troy?
Yes, agreed. Because I mean, before the season started, I would have thought that the Twins would be in conversation, which they are obviously, but we don't have the record. I would have thought the Chicago White Sox would be in a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I would have thought that maybe Cleveland might have been up there too. The Cleveland Guardians, as they're now called, but no, it's been a little different. And we're talking the Detroit Tigers being, I don't think they are a playoff team, but they are definitely in the middle of the pack in the AL Central.
Yeah, Troy, if I can ask you a question here real quick, this is first time that I can think of that we've ever had, I think, someone on the podcast that has been a direct quote unquote rival of the team that obviously Alex and I love. So just kind of a blanket question for you, Troy. As a
Sure.
Twins fan, how do you view the Detroit Tigers? Because Alex and I have now ranted, raved, made fun of, sometimes praised for the last 4 seasons we've had our show. I would love to get an outsider's perspective. And we've always, of course, made our comments how we view teams like the Twins and the White Sox. And I'm sure we can get into that verbal smackdown a little bit if we'd like to. But like for real, as a Twins fan, how over these last few seasons and even going into this year do you view the Tigers? And then on top of that, just like what were your expectations for the Twins heading into 2023?
Well, I really think what I'm going to say about the Tigers really goes back to 2015 when Brian Dozier hit that walk-off home run for the Minnesota Twins at Target Field, bottom ninth inning. Twins, I believe, are down 8-1 at one point in the game, and the Twins scored like 8 runs in that bottom ninth inning to come back, and 7 or 8. I think it was 8, but they come all the way down to come back, and I believe, guys, that was the moment that changed everything in the AL Central, because I mean, for a while, back in the late 2000s, like from 2006 through 2010, the Twins and Tigers were basically contending for the Central Division, a title, and for the most part, I know Cleveland won in 2007 and the White Sox won in 2008.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the Twins and Tigers, they were kind of, especially in 2009 when we got game 163 at Metrodome, Twins win in 12th inning. But then the Twins were not very good for a few years, from 2011 through 2014. And meanwhile, the Tigers were winning the Central Division. And 2015, well, the Twins, they kind of came on the scene again. I mean, we still had a lot of the same players we've had the past a few years, but we brought back Toy Hunter and whoever else was on that team at the time. And by the way, Hunter did play for the Detroit Tigers for the previous 2 seasons. So
I think it was 2012 and 2013 or 2013 2014, something like that. He was the right fielder who flipped over the fence in Boston when Poppy hit the grand slam.
Right. So it would have been 2013, 2014. I bet Hunter played for you guys. So the Twins, ever since Brian Dozier hit that walk-off home run, the Tigers have not been back to the playoffs. So really, it's almost the past 8 years, but Tigers have been almost basically in rebuild mode. And I know in 2019, I was listening to a podcast episode, and the local hosts from here, they were hosting a podcast where we talked about baseball, and they had on somebody from ESPN, one of their baseball writers, and they were saying how they couldn't recognize hardly anybody on the Detroit Tigers as far as names. I mean, Miguel Cabrera was there, and I can't remember what else was there, to tell you the truth. I'm sure Matthew Boyd was on the team, and there might have been a few others. But so basically, I would say as a Twins fan, we view the Tigers as inferior to the Minnesota Twins as far as success goes. But obviously, the Twins have not had a win in the playoffs the past 3 times we've been to the playoffs. But I would say we have been more successful than the Detroit Tigers, with the exception of 2016 when the Twins were just bad with a record 59 and 103 that season. And yet we have a lot of the same players that led us to the second place finish in 2015. So, Luke, you asked about how I thought the expectations I thought this year. I thought the Twins would be a lot better than what they are. And we can certainly get into it. We could talk about how they are leading the majors in strikeouts as a team, as the batters. As far as hitting, they're leading in strikeouts. But our pitching, Sonny Gray, Joel Ryan has pitched good for us. Pablo Lopez, well, he has pitched good at times, but there are other times he's not pitched as well. And Kenta Maeda, well, he's been injured. Well, he came back yesterday and pitched good for the Braves, but not for the pitched good against the Atlanta Braves, and but unfortunately the Twins lost that game. And I could tell you guys that the Minnesota Twins have not been they are 0 for 23 with runners in scoring position in that series, and the manager Rocker Baldelli is not happy about how the team has been performing. And the thing that I find troubling about Rocco's comments is he says they work hard they put in the effort before games, but it's how they do it in games. It's not working out. And I don't know. It's kind of seems like Rocco Baldelli is contradicting himself when he says that stuff. So yeah.
0 for 23. That sounds like the Tigers.
It really does. Yeah.
So hate to rub salt in the wound there, Troy, but that doesn't even sound like a Tigers weak stretch. That sounds like something they would do like in a game or two. So that's brutal.
Now, Luke, how could the Tigers get runners in scoring position for 23 at bats? That's ridiculous.
I would call Fast and Furious, because that would be ludicrous, is what it would be.
Yeah, well, I don't know if they're just not executing things right. I could go into detail about how former Twins second baseman, he also played first base too for Twins, but former Twins Rod Carew, he said that because of the analytical information that they have these days, the hitters are not tracking the pitches. I think they're thinking, okay, well, analytically, the pitcher normally throws this on this count or whatever. I don't know what they're doing, but it just seems like they're guessing. And it just seems like a lot of times it's like all of a sudden strike three, swing and miss, and they're swinging at a pitch that's outside of the zone. We can get into a lot of discussion about analytics and how that has impact baseball, but I feel like we're overusing analytics. I'm not saying analytics is all bad, and analytics has been around in baseball for years, but analytics, I think they're just overusing analytics of some of these front offices.
That's a really interesting point, because the Tigers have been one of the leaders in the league in utilizing analytics and investing in their data department. Obviously, to what effect, as the team has not been competitive for much of the time that they've been doing that, and whether or not that's an overinvestment in analytics and not necessarily in actual players. But I do also know that, like, this season, defensive positioning, in outfield positioning has the defensive runs saved stat there is somewhere right around 10 defensive runs saved, which leads the majors for the Tigers, which obviously indicates that some of those guys are maybe due to analytics and the way George Lombard is deploying those as the bench coach in charge of that positioning. They are playing better than they maybe are talent wise. So I'm just curious, how do the Twins as an organization utilize analytics? And as a fan, do you think that it's been a good investment or a bad investment for the Twins?
I don't know exactly everything they do to utilize analytics, but what I can tell you is when Derek Falvey came here as the president of baseball operations after the 2016 season, that it seemed like they were stressing the use of analytics. And then Falvey got from the Cleveland Browns a gentleman named Daniel Atwater, who was into the stats with the Browns. And it seems like they brought in all these stat guys to help with that operation, that part of the operation. So obviously, from what I'm sensing, they use analytics a lot. The Twins do. And as a fan, well, let me back up a second. When Falvey came here, Paul Molitor was the manager, and I think the deal was that Molitor had to stay on as manager for at least one more season. Paul Molitor stayed for 2 years. And I wonder if a reason why, we signed Molitor to a 3-year contract before it's around the 2018 season. The reason why they got rid of Molitor, because he did not agree with all the ways they wanted to utilize analytics. And Molitor, he's a smart player. He observes, and he was a great player for Milwaukee Brewers, Toronto Blue Jays, and Minnesota Twins when he finished up his career. And I think that they wanted somebody younger. Rocco Baldelli seems to like the use of analytics, so they wanted somebody younger. And the Twins have people in their baseball operations. I don't think they even have had really serious ties to baseball before. I know Derek Falvey, the way he broke into the scene was he was doing something with scouting and stuff. I'm not sure exactly what it would involve. It sounded like he was doing something with video and stuff, and somehow he was able to get hooked on to the Cleveland Indians organization in the mid 2000s. So, and I think it's a general trend throughout baseball. The front offices are bringing people who have never been involved in professional baseball anymore, so they could utilize what they feel is the a data-driven model to managing and whatever and scouting and all that stuff. I mean, data can be good for a lot of it, but I just feel like as a fan that the Twins are overutilizing data. I don't know what the reports say. That the teams that the Twins are using. What all the data is in that report, but just general observations from a fan, from what I hear, I just think the Twins are overutilizing analytics, and that that maybe we need to go back to how we used to do baseball, more observation. I'm not saying stats don't replace the game, or analytics, rather, but
Right.
they just need to go back to the observation stuff. It goes back to what Rocco Baldelli said yesterday. He said they needed to make uh changes in the game, on how the game is going. You can't try the same thing at the plate or whatever they're doing.
Yeah, I think one thing that's fascinating, Troy, is I feel like the Tigers and the Twins are in the same boat in a lot of ways. Not only because they're in the same division, they're both fighting for first place. They're both very much underperforming. But when you bring up the analytics thing in particular, I feel like that is a thing that Tigers fans are starting to get more and more frustrated with AJ Hinch about. And to be fair, AJ Hinch is probably the best manager the Tigers have had since Jim Leland. I mean, Brad Ausmus was a sponge, and I would say that Ron Gardenhire, although I know you probably have a lot of love and respect for Gardy, as do Alex and I, and most Tigers fans, he was
Yep.
given an unwinnable task to try to make that team a contender. You talked about that hellacious 2019 season. He was at the helm of the ship for that year, and it was just absolutely brutal. But not on him. I mean, he was given like a JV roster to try to compete in the major leagues with. But AJ Hinch right now, pretty much across the board, is loved. I don't want to maybe not loved, but really well liked, I would say, amongst Tiger fans. And they want him to obviously kind of be the guy that leads them in this next generation of winning. I personally think he could show a little bit more charisma and fire, but that's just a personal critique for me. Maybe a little bit more Jim Leland, Bobby Cox kind of attitude, but I get it. It's kind of a different, era now that managers manage in. But one discrepancy I feel like a lot of people are starting to take against AJ is not so much maybe analytics could get tied into this, delving too much into that. And for example, there's a player right now in the Tigers. Maybe you're familiar with Kerry Carpenter. He is,
Yep.
yeah, he's probably the best, um, probably the best hitter the Tigers have on the team right now. Maybe next to Matt Vierling because Riley Green is on the IL. And I believe it was, I don't remember if it was for sure one game, but maybe even two in this most recent series against the Texas Rangers. He sat Kerry Carpenter because it was a lefty on lefty matchup. Again, it was for sure one game. It might have been two. I don't remember at the top of my head. But fans take onus of that stuff of that on Twitter. And even before Riley Green got hurt, there was a couple games. I remember it was right around that Pittsburgh series, Alex, where AJ benched Riley Green right before they had an off day. It was a quick 2 game series, a Tuesday Wednesday. He benched him on the Wednesday finale. They had an off day on Thursday. They were back on Friday, and his reasoning was the lefty lefty matchup, analytics. And while I think there is something to be said about that to an extent, when you are not playing your best hitter or best hitters because you're trying to adhere to some analytic formulas, stats, whatever, that's where I think the analytics have gone too far. And you do just have to let these guys kind of get their lumps. And like today, I think Kerry Carpenter, he struck out with bases loaded against a left-handed pitcher, but I'm okay with that. He's going to have to, if he wants to stick around in the major leagues for any amount of time, you will eventually have to hit something other than right-handed pitching. So you have to get your lumps and you have to kind of get that experience. And I do think that is something for me personally where I get annoyed with the analytics side of it. I'm not some curmudgeon who thinks get rid of analytics forever. I don't think any of us on this show are right saying that right now. But I think we all are in agreement that sometimes it does overtake the thing of just let them go out there and see what happens. Let them see what they can do. Let's see if they can make some magic. Let them earn their stripes, so to speak. So I think again, I think there's a lot of parallels, is what I'm getting at. And that analytics thing with the Tigers is just a small thing. But I think there's a ton of parallels right now between the Tigers and the Twins. And if I can ask you a question off the top again, Troy, just kind of get your thoughts on something. Um, you mentioned a little while ago infielders for the Twins. I would love to pick your brain on how did you react slash how do you feel? Now we're about 3 months into the season. Luis Arise is very potentially going to be hitting 400 by the end of the year, something we have not seen in decades. Um, how did you react to the Luis Arise trade? Did you like what the Twins got in return? Looking back on it, did you not like it? Were you a fan of it from the get-go? Are you resentful of it now? Do you think if he was still around with the Twins, they'd be in a much better spot and running away with the division? Kind of what are your thoughts on that trade?
You know, I was not. I was skeptical of a trade initially. I figured, well, if we trade Luis Rise and he hits really well for Miami, and Pablo Lopez does not pan out, I was not gonna be happy, and I'm still not. I mean, and that has kind of become the case about this trade. I'm not exactly happy because, as I said before, Pablo Lopez has not been. Uh, he's not been performing at the level that he should be. Um, I just think that I just wonder if we had not traded Luis Ariz, where we would be at. We would probably be better. And maybe because of how they deal with analytics in the Twins organization, maybe Ariz would not be hitting at where he was at. Granted, he hit over 300 with us last year. I think it was, I don't know, it was 314 or something like that. I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was around that. It was around that mark. So yes, I think, you know, whatever they are doing in Miami, the Twins are failing. I don't know what and it just seems like, as I said before, some teams utilize analytics better than others.
Hmm?
So I don't know. I just wonder if a lot there are players here for the Twins who are not performing at what they should be, but Luis Rise, I would love to have him back. I will say that. And if he performs like he did with Miami here, I would really love to have him back.
Well, I think too, when you look back at prior seasons, I mean, I guess last season was his first go, but that's a pretty impressive 1, 2, 3 with Luis Ariz, Carlos Correa, and Byron Buxton. Now, obviously, Luis Ariz was a hitting machine for you guys last season. He's multiplied that, it seems, going into 2023. Like I said, I think he's hitting like 396 right now or 397. I mean, there's a very real chance he ends up hitting 400 by the end of the season, which is awesome. Um, Byron Buxton, just can't seem to stay healthy. I know this year, I think he's been okay for the most part, if I'm not mistaken. And then this year, Carlos Correa, just completely tanking. And I guess I'll leave the conversation on Correa for a second. Would you be willing to swap shortstops? Because we will gladly send you Javi Baez if you want to send us Carlos Correa. I don't care if Carlos Correa's only got one leg, doesn't know how to swing a baseball bat. I'll still give you Javi over Correa. So yeah, as you can tell, we're not too pleased with the Javi Baez signing. But yeah, I guess that's kind of just another springboard too. he had a crazy offseason as well. A lot of people, I think, going into 2022 looked at him only being there for a rental year. That's kind of what happened with his opt out. Then he fails a physical with San Francisco, fails the physical with the New York Mets, and now he's back in Minnesota where he signed the big deal last offseason. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think this is just kind of a fluke and he'll eventually turn back into the Carlos Correa of old? Kind of how do you peg a guy like Correa, who throughout his career has been dominant and successful, but this season it's a totally different player, it looks like.
You know, I actually thought the Twins paid too much for Correa. I know they brought him in last year for a 3-year deal worth about $105 million, which was still pretty high. I mean, actually, yes, it's high. And I'm like, okay, well, if he's only here for 1 year, then we have Royce Lewis take over at shortstop. You know, that'll be good. You know, Lewis is one of the top prospects in the Twins organization. And well, unfortunately, Lewis, he re-aggravates his ACL injury while playing center field last June at Target Field. And so now it's kind of like, okay, what do we do at shortstop in the meantime until Lewis can return by probably around June or July, they were thinking, maybe August. So the Twins signed Kyle Farmer. Actually, what was a trade? Yes, it was a trade of Cincinnati Reds. They traded for Kyle Farmer. And so you're thinking, okay, we have an adequate shortstop. But then I watched the drama with Carlos Correa unfold, and here he signs up. Here he signs a $200 million, well, a potentially $200 million, worth up to that amount, 10-year deal, and I think about 170 million is guaranteed over 6 years, and then the value of the contract goes down with each of well, the way the contract is structured, the value goes up the next 3 years, and then it goes down with each year after that, and then the final 4 years, obviously, if he stays here those years, the value goes down. Now, on paper, it might sound good, but the way Correa has performed this year, I really question why the Twins made that decision. You know, it's about $33 million a year, with 170 million that the contract is worth in the first 6 years, on average. So, you know, you could use some of that money toward bringing in some better pitching or whatever the Twins' needs are. But now here he has money tied up in Carlos Correa, and right now he's not performing. But I will tell you, yesterday there was an article where he said that he takes full responsibility for the hitter. Now, is it the right way to go about it? I don't know, because ultimately it takes everybody on the team to determine how successful the team is. So is it the right thing for Correa to say? Maybe somewhat, but I don't think it's totally right. And the Twins as a team right now, guys, they are not, I've said this before, I think, they're not performing.
That is true. Thankfully, and I say this about the Tigers a lot on our show. Thankfully, they play in the Central, so they're not out of it. In fact, they're leading it. They're right there in the top. Troy, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us here on the show. Can you tell our listeners more about Minnesota Twins Chat, where they can find it, and all that good stuff?
Okay, so you can find the show on a lot of podcasting platforms. I still have to get to point up on Apple Podcasts and other platforms yet, but I'm going to get to that real soon. But if you Google, well, try doing Minnesota Twins Chat, Troy Larson, you should find the various platforms that it's on right now. But I am working to get it up on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, but it should be on a lot of the other podcasting platforms that are out there right now, such as TuneIn and Amazon Music and whatever else is out there, but it's on right now. So yes, so yeah, enjoy Minnesota Twins chat. I primary host for Show Up My Dad, but um, due to stuff going on, I kind of branched out, and we're gonna have some guests on. So hopefully, so yes, so just check it out, and you'll find out. I try to release an episode every 2 weeks or so. So check it out, guys, and yes, and it was nice to be on your show.
Thanks, Troy. Appreciate you coming on. It was good chatting with you. Sorry that we're both kind of in misery together, but I guess that's like I said, misery loves company. So pull up a chair.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe, yeah, and we'll probably continue the misery chat on my show.
Yeah.
We are back on the Michigan and Trumbull podcast. Great conversation with Troy. It was great catching up with a Twins fan. That was the first time we've had a Twins fan to chat with. Now I think we just need to find a Royals fan to complete the set. Oh, I guess a Guardians fan.
No, have we had a Cleveland fan yet?
Forgot about them for a second.
I'm trying to think.
Forgot
Do I
about
know
the
any
co-division
Kansas City
leaders. Don't mind me.
Yeah, I don't think I know any Cleveland fans or Kansas City fans. A couple people we went to school with were Minnesota Twins fans. But we welcomed him in. We welcomed an enemy into camp, so to speak, bringing in Twins. But Troy's a very nice guy, very, very nice, easy to talk to, and just seems to be in the same kind of shit show we are as a Tiger fan, where it's just kind of a never-ending circle of mediocrity being a Twins fan. So yeah, we'll see.
True.
We'll see how it goes.
And we did also appear on his show. That episode dropped over the weekend, so make sure you check that out. Go give it a listen. Luke says some very, very nice things about Al Avila on that show. So you're not going to want to miss that. Where
I did give him a compliment.
Luke turns into an Avila apologist. It's really quite remarkable.
An Avila stan. Next week I'm going to invite Chris Illich to my birthday party. It's going to be pretty awesome.
It'll be a great time. It will be a great time. All right, Luke. This week's numbers.
All right.
As of so far this season, what is the Detroit Tigers record in one-run games?
Oh, God, that's a toughie. I actually think their record is good. I feel like they've won a bunch of these games where it's like 3-2, 4-3, 5 whatever. I feel like they maybe had a shutout game. Can I give you the number of wins I think they've had in?
Yeah.
Let's start there.
I'll take that.
I'm not great with math. I'm going to say 11. 11 wins.
Very close. It's 12. They're 12-9.
I was going to say 12.
In one-run games. Now, how does that compare to last year? How many wins in one-run games last year?
How many wins in one-run games? I don't think they were so bad last year. They were a really bad baseball team. Oops. That's me telling you to check in for my Southwest flight, which we'll give those results here in just a second. I'm going to say they had 9 wins in one-run games.
22.
They had 20. What?
They were 22-20 in one-run games last year, which Are
you kidding me?
Would not have.
No.
If I didn't look up this number, I would not have believed it.
Not at all. I feel like they lost. I mean, I guess the bullpen was good last year, but
yeah,
I don't know. They did have Chafin. Yeah, that is a surprising stat. That is, I thought I was being gracious with 9. I was going to say maybe 8. I mean, 7 or 8, but 22-20.
When I looked that up, because I obviously looking at this year's numbers that they were above 500 in one-run games. So I was like, they had to have been 200 at best in one-run games last year. Just
right.
But I guess again, That's 42 games. The other 120 were not one-run games, to say the least. And so, like, if they were in it, they could be in it and they could pull it out. So that's going to bring me to this other number for you on this journey, Luke. How many games last year did they lose by a blowout, where they lost by 5 or more runs?
How many games did they lose last year by a blowout of 5 or more runs? I'm gonna say, God, they were hurt a lot with pitching last year. Melvin Rodriguez, Drew Hutchinson. I'm gonna say they lost 33.
Very
games.
close. Very close. 29 is what it was.
Okay, not bad. I'll take that. Within 5, I'll take that.
How many times do you think they blew out a team last year?
Were they won by more than 5?
Yeah.
16.
Very close as well. 15. Really nice.
Dude, I'm terrible at math, but things that mean absolutely nothing in life, I'm not that bad. Not like movie release dates. Give it to me. I'm pretty good.
Which compare, so that was in blowout games last year, the Tigers were 341. This year so far they are 286 in blowout games. So when a blowout's happening this year, the Tigers are not typically on the correct side of it.
Yeah, I do feel like some of their losses they have had that I can remember. I mean, there have been a couple of heartbreaking losses. I can think of that one against the Phillies, and then the Diamondbacks won, and then the one the other night when Maton threw the ball away. I think that was against Minnesota. There was a couple of heartbreakers, but there was also a couple of blowouts too along the way. And I don't feel like they've done many. I feel like they've done less bloodbaths this year, even more so than last year. Which is that? Am I correct on that? I don't know if you have those numbers pulled up by any chance, or
they have. Which side do you want the Tigers on?
I just that they're winning a bloodbath. I feel like they haven't blown out a lot of teams this year, I guess is what I'm saying, especially
Correct.
compared to last year.
They've only blown out 6. They've only had 6 blowout wins so far in the first half, which is,
if we're counting more,
pacing behind what it was last year.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Where they had 15 blowout wins. Okay, one more number.
Okay.
I went ham in Baseball Reference today. I had a good time.
Okay. I love it.
This season, how many games have the Tigers blown the lead and ultimately lost? So if they lost the lead and then came back and won the game, it doesn't count in this number. This is they were winning the game and then they lost the game.
And we're not just saying like this is like how many games they blow in the 9th inning. Like they could have blown it in the 7th inning.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
But they did establish a lead.
Yeah.
And then blow it.
I think for starters, I'm just gonna try to look at this from like the numbers draw. I'm pretty sure Lang has blown like 2 or 3 games. So I'm gonna say 3 there for a starter. I'm gonna say it's not as high as I think it is, because they're 35 and 45. So I'm gonna say they've done. The bullpen's been pretty solid. They're a pretty solid bullpen. Let's go. I'm going to keep in the teens, right at the teens. I'm going to say 13.
Very close again. 15.
Okay.
15. A third
Boy.
of their losses, which is not as great when you put it that way, has been a blown lead.
Yeah. I could see that the bullpen has been very good. Very, very good. But when every 3 days it seems like it's a bullpen day, it's bound to happen. So
yes.
Yeah,
there's only so much.
That checks out. Fascinating. And also kudos to me. I feel like the last couple episodes, my numbers have just been getting stronger and stronger. I guess when you
I really thought I was going to get you with some of these.
The one you got me on was the how many 1-run games did they win what was that, 20
Last
when they
year,
went
yeah,
22 and 20?
22.
Yeah, that one I was way off. I did not, I still can't believe that they won 22. They went 22 and 20 in one-run games last season. They
Yeah.
weren't on the below 500 side of that, so to speak. That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun one. That was a fun one. It's been a fun episode. We had that great
Yeah.
conversation with Troy. We had an excellent rant at the beginning from you, Luke. Over the next
I try.
couple weeks here, we'll have the guys back as we hit the All-Star break to kind of do our mid-season check-in on our picks and some more stuff planned throughout the year. So make sure you keep the dial on Michigan and Trumbull. Again, you can head over to michiganandtrumbull.substack.com. You can subscribe to the Substack, where we're going to have an email that lets you know when a new episode drops. And we've got some stuff in the works for the second half of the year that'll be fun stuff if you're over on the Substack. Luke's got the Twitter on lockdown at @Mich_Trumbull. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at @Mich_Trumbull pod. And yeah, keep tuning in.
YouTube.
We love
Yeah.
Find us on the YouTube. If you're on YouTube,
Yeah.
you're watching it now. If you're listening, we're also on YouTube. You can go find us there, subscribe. You can look at our beautiful faces during the episode.
You can put a face with the bad takes. That's the way I look at it. Alex, real quick, I know you're signing off. You're doing a wonderful job.
Thank
But
you.
we probably won't talk to the audience until after the All-Star break at this point, most likely, with the way we
That's true.
record.
Yep, the next
So I want to
episode will
get your
drop
last
after the break.
question. I'm going to ask you a quick number, and then we can get the hell out of here. They got 9 games left. 6 out of those 9, nice, are against teams that are under 500. That being the Colorado Rockies and the Oakland A's, and they finish off the first half against the Toronto Blue Jays. 9 games. They're currently 10 games under 500. How do you think they fare in those last 9 games of the season before we get to the All-Star break? Got a number for me, a record?
They will go 5-4.
Okay. 5-4. I think I put for the last 10. I put them at, including the finale of the Rangers game on Twitter. I said 6-4. So I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to stick with 6-4. Or I guess in this case now it would be 5-4.
Yep.
But yeah. So I like that prediction. I would love
It'll
it.
be 40-49 at the
I would
All-Star
love
break.
it if they could. I mean, I feel like you gotta sweep. I don't want to say both series. I'll give them a game where they can lose either one game against Oakland or Colorado, but you feel like they got to at least sweep one of those series against the Rockies, or honestly, if they can take 5 out of 6 from those two teams, and even if they take 1 from Toronto and end up going 6-3, good stuff. That'd be great stuff. I think that'd be good stuff. So anyways, let's hope it happens. So, as you were with your outro.
As I was, that's going to do it for this episode of the Michigan and Trumbull podcast. And we will see you all soon. Happy 4th of July, everybody, as you're listening as this drops. And have a great holiday. Enjoy a hot dog and stay safe.